This video is sponsored by Surfshark, the best VPN on the market. Surfshark is an app or browser extension that allows you to change your location to access websites in other countries and keep you safe from hackers. For example, we here in Ireland can access other countries' Netflix libraries, streaming services such as DAZN in Spain for those all-important Premier League games. Surfshark keeps you safe and private by protecting everything you do online. When your device connects to the internet, all that information is, in a way, blurred out. Surfshark is particularly useful for keeping you safe if you use public Wi-Fi, such as a college or a cafe. Surfshark allows you to use one subscription on unlimited devices, meaning that you can even share an account with friends and family. On top of this, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you don't like it, you can even get your money back. Our sign-up offer gives you Surfshark VPN for just over €2 per month and up to 4 months free. Why not scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the description to take advantage of this offer. What is up, my friends? We are live. It is Tuesday's Late Night Agenda, and as always, it is a pleasure to be here with you. I know there's Champions League games on, so please do feel free to keep me up to date with what is happening, but I always appreciate you giving up your time and lots to talk about. We're going to speak about one confirmed absentee for tomorrow's game against Eintracht Frankfurt. We're going to give you a little bit on Michael Elise. We're going to talk about Antoine Semenyo, a little bit on Eduardo Camavinga, which I touched on in the earlier video. And of course, look, the floor is yours. Anything you would like to discuss, let me know. I want to just start off with this one from Naturalist really quickly, because the first super chat of the night in. And firstly, thank you for the super chat. You said, Craig, the package has arrived. Thanks so much again. Sorry I've not been around, not in a good place, but really appreciate your gift. Well, look, all I was doing was repaying your kindness, my friend. You were really, really lovely to me and sent me over those Canadian cookies that I love so much. So the least that I could do was sort you out with a few bits that you were looking for. So glad it arrived safe and sound. I'm really sorry to hear that you're not doing well. I hope that there are brighter times ahead for you soon. But if there is ever anything else like that you need, my friend, it is my pleasure to help you sort it out. So again, thank you for dropping in. Lovely to hear from you, but I hope you're feeling better soon. David, how are we, dude? Evening, Craig and bro, and our lovely community. Again, David, I hope that you're doing okay, sir, after the loss of your father. I know we touched on it yesterday, but I just want you to know we're all here for you, mate, again. And we do appreciate you being in with us and hope that you and your family are doing as well as can be expected. Right, so, ladies and gents, lots to discuss tonight. We're going to speak about some things I forgot to mention yesterday. We're going to talk about Jamie Carragher again reiterating his belief that Mohamed Salah should be having a little spell on the sidelines. And also I want to let you guys know that the Anfield Agenda podcast, the latest episode, will be out tonight at 10:45. Myself, Connor and Chris sat down a little bit earlier on today and we discussed all things going on at Liverpool. Of course, we talked about the form going into it, what we think is wrong, and what would take maybe for Arne Slot's job to come under pressure, and a few other bits and pieces. We touched on predictions for the game tomorrow as well against Eintracht Frankfurt. So on the Arne Slot thing, I want to make this really clear from the start. I am absolutely not Arne Slot out. Not yet. I don't know what it would take for me to get there. I'm starting to put a picture of in my mind about what it might take. But the bookies, well, they've been putting the odds out there. And Paddy Power have Arne at 16-1 to be sacked. He'd be the 9th favourite in the betting there if he was to be sacked. And I guess the interesting question that's been playing in my mind a little bit is, somebody asked me yesterday what it would take maybe for me to get to the point of time to sack Arne. And what I was thinking of, I think 3 more league losses and I might be there, you know. I know it's really early days, but the reason I'm saying 3 more league losses and I might be there would be because at that point, we're not talking about whether we win a league title or not. We're talking about whether we qualify for the Champions League or not. And if you're getting to the point where it would be another 3 league losses in a row, on top of the 3 losses we've already just had in the league, then you're starting to ask, is it just a philosophy thing? Is it a change of squad thing? Or is it a lack of belief in what the manager's doing? Now, these are all things that, of course, are hypothetical at this moment in time because we aren't there yet. But it's an interesting jumping off point tonight to ask what it would take for you guys before you feel that maybe Arne's job comes under a little bit of pressure. Got to reiterate and got to keep saying this. I'm not there yet. I really amn't. And I don't expect to have to get there. But somebody asked me last night, and I promised them I'd come back today with an answer. And we also had a chat on the podcast tonight about if the worst did come to the worst, who would you look at as a potential replacement there? And one thing that I'll give you a little hint on the podcast that we started off with, and I'm going to ask you to vote on this on a poll. So we spoke about the Stephen Bartlett Diary CEO podcast with Jurgen Klopp. And I asked the lads, if Jurgen Klopp said tomorrow morning that he wanted to come back to Liverpool and become Liverpool manager again, would you take it? Would you jump at that opportunity, or would you turn it down? Their answers really surprised me. I'll let you guys vote on it, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. So 1 second, let me just get a poll up here for you guys. So, would you take Klopp back right now? So, would you take Jurgen Klopp back right now? It was a really interesting conversation because, believe it or not, I was the only one that said I would. Now, I suppose I need context to this before people take me out of context. For me, I love Jurgen Klopp. And I connected with Jurgen Klopp on an emotional level because I am similar in that I can't hide my emotions. You know, I am what I am. High, low, happy, sad. You will see it in my face. You will see what I am. And I really bought into that. And I also bought into the ruthless aspect of what Jurgen Klopp had. And I understood and totally empathise with why he wanted that break. But I'd be a liar if I sat here and said to you, if it wasn't working out with Arne and that was a possibility, that I wouldn't jump at it. I'd be lying to you, and I'm not going to do that. Now, I'm not saying he should become the manager. I'm not saying there's any chance he may become the manager. But it was a hypothetical conversation. I was just surprised that the two guys said no, they wouldn't. Even if it was at a point where Arne was going to move on, I would do it in a heartbeat because, like I said, Arne is a great manager, but Jurgen to me is godlike. And I miss his antics. I miss his 100 miles an hour persona because that's kind of who I am as a person as well. So, you know, I'm not saying that Arne doesn't care as much because people are built differently. You know, I know many people who are emotional but really care a lot about what they do and are really invested in it. So yeah, I just thought it was an interesting one because, you know, with that Diary of a CEO podcast coming out and Jurgen saying, you know, very vaguely and loosely that he said Liverpool are the only team he would ever manage in the Premier League. So just thought it'd be an interesting jumping off point. Got cool. How are you, sir? Said Craig, what if Slot plays the same team, does the same throw the kitchen sink substitution for the next 3 games? What do we think? It would come down to the results. Got cool. Like, it is a results business. And of course you want to see the performances, mate, and you want to see them improve. But football's a results business. And if Arne keeps doing the same things and we're seeing the same results on the pitch, that those things aren't working, you'd have to be asking what the hell at that point. Like, you'd have to be saying that he's either too stubborn or deluded. Now, these are all hypothetical conversations because where we're at right now is that we've lost 3 league games in a row and a Champions League game, and we have another one tomorrow. If we win tomorrow, you know what? If we win tomorrow, that's not going to ease it for me because I want us to win tomorrow, but Saturday's important. We need to win that game against Brentford tomorrow or on Saturday. Losing against Galatasaray was unacceptable, but you know, we should win tomorrow. But the real one for me is going to be the Saturday night game away against Brentford. That's the one where I want to see us really get back to the proper winning ways and show that we can start to build in the right direction again. David said, I'm like you, Craig. Not there yet, but I would give till Christmas if the results are not right. I don't know if I would go to Christmas if the results aren't right, but I guess it depends, David, on what we're looking at. Like, if we won a game, had a couple of draws, lost another game, yeah, I'm not on the getting them sacked camp. Not at all. But if we lost tomorrow, if we lost on Saturday, and then if we were knocked out of the cup by Palace or, you know, beaten badly by Real Madrid or something, at that point I'm wondering, is it Arne or is it the dressing room don't believe in what he's doing? Now, again, all hypotheticals because we're not there yet. But at the moment, just feels more like stubbornness and trying to knit people together than anything bigger than that. But again, I keep coming back to, this is Liverpool Football Club. You don't lose 4 on the bounce. You certainly don't lose 5 on the bounce. And it's on the manager now to show why he is Liverpool manager. He's got to figure it out. For what it's worth, I think he will. And I do think we will get to where we need to be over the course of the season. I think at this point, I'm not thinking about retaining the Premier League title. I think it would be deluded of me to sit here and say I think Liverpool are going to. It's not written off yet. You know, we're not far enough away that you'd say we're out of it. But for me, I am kind of looking to the latter part of the Champions League as maybe the best time for us to peak, to get ready for that, and, you know, PSG-esque from last season. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with Arne. I certainly don't want to sack him, but I do want to see that he's going to change it and he's going to make changes, because excuses are just that, excuses. And I'm sick of hearing about low blocks. I'm sick of hearing about what we should have, could have, maybe done. You know, results are what matter, and we've lost 4 on the bounce. Got cool. Said, Craig, I loved your starting 11 for the next match and substitution, but playing all the remaining centre-backs a risk anyone more injury, which would leave us very slim. Yeah, Connor made the same point as you, got cool, and I totally understand it. I just think my instinct, got cool, would be to play Dominic Szoboszlai at right back. But I don't like that. He can do it. He's proven that he can do it. But I think we're losing something in midfield, mate. We're losing something big if we don't have him in there. So I think Gomez might be the safest option. We haven't really seen him utilise Frimpong as a right back on its own. Yeah, we've seen Bradley in there. And of course, Bradley's had a mixed start to the season. So if we're going to change it right back, Gomez will be the one that I'd go for. But I totally understand the point that you're making, because we are risking all our centre-backs that are fit and available being on the pitch in one time. But, you know, you could make the same point to say, if you rested Canade and played Joe Gomez, you're still taking that risk of a centre-back getting injured. So, you know, players have to play football. We can't not play them in case. That's my thinking on it, mate. The meme guy said, Szoboszlai doesn't like right back because you could see it when Wirtz came on. It's JB said, Dom has to play in midfield with Jones and Wirtz. I agree. Oh, it's a funny story. So just before I was going to do the stream tonight, Connor messaged me this WhatsApp message saying, this has to be the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Some dude who I haven't got a clue has somehow come to the conclusion, I can't believe I'm actually saying this out loud. Some dude has actually come to the conclusion that we're Freemasons, that football is controlled by Freemasons, the Anfield Agenda is run by Freemasons, and some of the rationale that this space cadet used to come to this was like, he was talking about the fact that our logo's built on a triangle. I mean, fair enough, but it's a good shape, right? He's talking about the fact that Anfield Agenda and 1-1, and he's just like making the biggest, craziest leaps I've ever seen in my life, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever sat through. I can assure you all, we are not run by Freemasons, because I don't even fully understand what the Masons are, apart from the few bits that I'd seen in white gold. But my God, I thought I'd seen it all. I thought I'd seen all the mad stuff on the internet, but no, I found another one. It's crazy stuff. TOTT2KZ1 said, I'd take Klopp back, but I still want Hughes, Edwards making the signing, so Klopp needs to work with them and trust them. Hopefully Slot gets us going. Yeah, look, I just thought it was an interesting question to ask about Klopp, because I'd seen some of the answers people were saying don't go back, and I get that. I do get that. But if we did lose Arne, you know, we also had a conversation around who that might be as a replacement, and I think we sort of came to a consensus on it, but I don't want to spoil it because it's in the podcast. N01 Beats said, the last 4 games, Salah spent 10 minutes on the bench, which was only against Man United. Arne needs to be comfortable taking him down earlier. So I'd go a step further, my friend. I wouldn't be playing Mohamed Salah for the next 2 games. Just point blank, I don't think he deserves to start. And on that, I want to just take you through what Jamie Carragher has said. Our friends at Anfield Index posted this quote from Carragher, who said, I don't think Salah should be starting every game right now. Certainly away from home from the form he's in. Liverpool have got 2 away games, Frankfurt, and then they go to Brentford. I don't think Salah should start both of those games. And I agree. I absolutely 100% agree. with Carragher on this one. Now, some arsehole in the comments tried to say, would you be saying that if it was Harry Kane? Now, you know where he's going with that, right? You know, trying to say that it's because Mohamed Salah is Egyptian or something like that. And yes, I would be saying it if it's Harry Kane, and mainly because I'm Irish and I don't give a shite about Harry Kane. So, ultimately, he's not been good enough, Salah, this season so far. And I don't think there is a counter-argument to that one. He hasn't been. So for me, I'd play Chiesa for the next 2 games. And, you know, you can take your pick who you'd want through the middle. I said I'd have Isak through the middle and I'd have Ekitike left, but I absolutely understand if somebody else said I want Ekitike central and Gakpo left, because it's not as if Isak has been pulling up any trees either. So yeah, but on your point, it has to be. You can't keep putting underperforming players out there, mate. So I agree with you. If he's not doing it and it's shown like he's not doing it, don't leave it till the 79th, 80th minute to get him off. You know, be brave and do it earlier. But I agree with Carrot. I don't think he should be starting these next 2 games. Finty, Tin, how are we, dude? Said, not going to lie, Real Madrid game worries me. I'm going to say, like the United game, mate, it could be one of 2 things. It could be a great game for us to get our mojo back in, or it could be a shit show. And I don't know which one of those it'll be. I'm certainly hoping it's, you know, a game that we can get another win in against Madrid and build back up some confidence. But, you know, it's hard to sit here now as a Liverpool fan and speak with any confidence about what we're going to see, because it's been not great lately. And, you know, it's bordering on delusion now if I just sit here saying, yeah, we're going to win this game, we're going to win this game, we're going to win this game. We have to earn the right to win it now. And we should be able to go over and beat Eintracht Frankfurt. But if you've seen the preview, you'd seen I went 2-2 because I honestly just couldn't bring myself to keep saying, yes, we're going to win. Because how can I with what we're seeing? Mohammed said, are we missing Trent's crosses and creativity? Of course, 100%. And on top of that, mate, we're missing his relationship with Mohamed Salah and the understanding that those two had. So yeah, 100% we are missing it. But I got to reiterate on this as well, mate. That was Trent's decision. That wasn't a Liverpool decision. Trent made the decision to move on. And, you know, there's not much the club could do about that at that point. So we're definitely missing him. Definitely. Royston said, I'm selling tinfoil hats. It's an edition version available. Nice. Can I have one? I could do with a tinfoil hat, mate. Yeah. So I've seen a couple of you mention the name that we came to for the potential manager if Arne, the worst came to the worst down the line and Arne left. Now, I'm not going to say who it is because I'd like you to watch the podcast, but let's just say it has been mentioned in the chat by a few of you. So well played. Christine said, do you think Salah is saving himself for the AFCON? This might be his last one, so we don't want to risk injuries. No. Not personally. I'm not saying 100% you're right or wrong. But no, I don't think so, because he's going to want to go into the AFCON in form. You know, you can't, like I said, when we switched off at the end of last season because we won the league, it's very difficult to flick that switch and get back to being your best. So, no, I wouldn't say. I just genuinely think he's struggling. And if anything, I think he'd want to find form before going to the AFCON. Brad said, with one centre-back's head in Madrid and the other centre-back showing no integrity, and the attacking talisman, Salah, practically not there, you ask yourself, what do we do? So, the integrity part, I'm not really sure where you're going with that on Virgil. I don't know what you mean by the integrity part. I would say maybe Virgil isn't being open enough about the struggles we're having, and maybe he's just trying to bluff through it and say everything's fine. That much, you know, I think maybe there's a point on. The centre-back, Canade's head being in Madrid, I would flip that question, Brad, and ask, do you think Madrid be sodded with Canade anymore with the up-and-down performances this season? Because if we look to who's available, you've got Upamecano, you've got Mark Gay, you've got Ibrahim Canade. I think there's a couple of more centre-backs whose contracts are up at the end of the season. And if you're Madrid and you were looking at those 3, right now you're probably saying that Mark Gay would be the one you would be pushing for. So, yeah, I wonder, would Madrid's interest, or has Madrid interest waned on Canade or not? So, yeah, And what do? Well, we go out in the market, mate, and we sign a centre-back or two first and foremost. I think that's something that we have to do in January. Now, there was some encouraging news today about transfers or potential transfers. And daydreaming, I will get to your post now in 1 second, sir. But I just wanted to draw your attention to something that the I newspaper said, and I think it's Mark Douglas is the gentleman's name. This is very interesting, so I want to read it out to you. LFC Transfer Room posted this, and it was, Liverpool spent nearly £450 million in the summer, but are still in the market for long-term successors to Mohamed Salah and Virgil van Dijk. They still have the headroom to spend with PSR under the PSR rules after they're offsetting the record spending spree by selling the likes of Nunez and Diaz this season. So, pretty clearly spells out there from that reporter that Liverpool still have ambition and money to bring in the long-term Virgil replacement and the long-term Salah replacement, which we haven't brought in yet. Now, we're talking about maybe Canade going, Mark A coming in or whatever, and I'll move on to speak about Joe Gomez in a while. But it is still encouraging that the club still have that ambition to spend that money to bring in the replacements long-term for these guys. I guess the question is, when do you do that? When do you start planning maybe to ease either or both out of a team? I think with Virgil, you could probably wait a little bit longer, but Salah would be the one that I think needs the competition right now. But in saying that, and you flip it, centre-back is a position that we definitely need an answer in. So, interesting to see what happens there. Daydreaming said, I would love to see us play 4-4-2 with Dom as a right mid and Fede up front with Isak. Or you could just have both of our strikers up front, mate, Ekitike and Isak. So a 4-4-2. Like I said, everything's possible. Arne has to look into his soul now and say, what am I going to do to sort this out? Because I asked the guys in the pod earlier on, what style are we trying to play? And, the PSG-esque style kept coming up, but we're a million miles away from playing in the way PSG played against us and the way that they play in general, because we are nowhere near as on the front foot with our pressing. Our fullbacks aren't as high as the PSG fullbacks would be, and I think we're somewhere caught in the middle, like I keep saying. So many quandaries, so many questions, just not enough answers yet. Carl said, Slot can turn this around. I'm far from Slot out. Of course he can, mate. Of course. I have to keep reiterating this because, people love to quote me and say I've said this, that, or the other. I am absolutely not Arne Slot out, and I 100% want him to turn it round and think that he's capable of turning it round. But I also can't sit here and say that there won't ever be a point, if this continued, where I would be more concerned. Because if it keeps going, you ask yourself, like I said, is it solely just the tactics and the players that have brought in? Or is it something festering behind the scenes that we're not sure of? So I was watching Match of the Day last night, because obviously I recorded it while I was over in Liverpool for the game. And something Troy Deeney said kind of stuck in my head. And he spoke about the fact that it feels like Liverpool have too many egos up front. Now, I'm paraphrasing here, but what he meant was, so you had Isak, who was the main guy at Newcastle. You had Ekitike, who's the main guy at Eintracht Frankfurt. You have Salah, who's the main guy at Liverpool. You've got Wirtz, who's the main guy at Leverkusen. Have all of these egos come in, and are they wanting to be the guy that scores? And is that detrimental to what we're trying to do? And again, so much of this is just trying to figure it out as fans, because we're not inside and we don't know what goes on a daily basis. But it was an interesting take, and one I just thought I'd bring to your attention. Goku said, Craig, I've seen Klopp age slowly. Hairline, match on match, season on season. His press conferences were passionate. Real Slot sounds very lazy, lethargic, and worried this creeps into the team. So, Premier League managers do age quickly. I mean, you can look at Mourinho when he came in. You can look at Pep when he came in. You can look at Jurgen. It's a tough job, dude. You are under the microscope at big clubs like Liverpool all the time. And I'm sure it's a really stressful existence being a manager at the very top level. I'm just really annoyed about that trip Arne took. So let's say he went back to the Netherlands, went back to Holland to spend a weekend with his family over the international break. I don't think any of us will be that annoyed about that. But to go over to Dubai and be away for a prolonged period during a mess that is sort of his making to some extent, I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think that's acceptable in any way, shape, or form. That a manager who is overseeing a really, really difficult time disappears off. He's not on international duty. He should be still working, in my opinion. International breaks for managers, you should either be going watching other players or your players play for the country. Or in this scenario, I think he should have been sitting at the AXA with all of his coaches around him, having a real clear the air meeting, trying to figure out what on earth they're going to do to stop the rot. Not heading off to Dubai on a break. It just feels absolutely insane to me that he did it. Corbin said, for me, if Slot loses 2 more, he's gone. So for you, mate, if Slot lost both the games this week, you'd be firing him on Monday. I'm only asking for clarity. I'm not asking to cut you down or anything. Because I don't know what it would take for me. But I do know 3 more league losses, and I wouldn't be a million miles away from saying something has to give. Because it's one thing not winning the league this year. If we lose out to Arsenal or City or somebody else, and, we come back stronger, but we finish a bit short, okay, that's fine. But if you're in danger of missing out in Champions League, that's a big problem now. When you've got the players that we have, with the money that we have, and you want to be ambitious and keep building. We can't be missing out in Champions League football. That has to be a guarantee. And if it's looking like that might not be a guarantee, I don't know what it would take then for the owners to maybe sit down and act. We know that the owners aren't irrational, that they don't work off emotion, that they work off numbers, data. So I'm not saying that they're going to make an emotionally rash decision, but I don't know, man. It's not a conversation I ever thought we'd be having this season after the summer that we had. Maybe it's the way we lost the 4. Like, if you lost 1, went and won a couple of games, lost another, won a couple of games, the fact that they're in a row seems to be, to me, is the most worrying aspect of it. Matteo said, Chiesa, Isak, Hugo, Flo, Dom Jones, Robbo, Bradley, VVD, Gomez should be the starters. Slot needs to tell the boys he wants 10 goals. I'm trying to work back through that. So Gomez, VVD, Bradley, Robbo, Jones, Dom, Flo, Isak, Chiesa, Hugo. I don't think your team and my team's a million miles away there. I think the only difference in your team and my team is I had Gomez at right back instead of Bradley, and in turn then Canada will go in at centre back. So I don't think we're a million miles away there, mate. And on the goals thing, a really interesting stat that came out is that, we mentioned it last night, in our last 4 games we've scored 3 goals, but we've had an XG of 9.5, which is insane. And the XG that we had for the game against Manchester United this weekend that we lost was only 0.3 goals lower than the XG we had when we beat them 7-0. It's nuts, isn't it? So almost the same XG for a game we won 7-0 with a game we lost 2-1. So to some extent, you can see why Arne is looking at some of those numbers and saying we've been unlucky. But I'm not really overly concerned about the attack as a Liverpool fan. I'm concerned about the other end of the pitch. Because forwards go through blips, that's okay. But we're creating chances. We haven't been scoring as many as we wanted, but we've been a bit unlucky. I don't think it's look at the other end of the pitch, though. And that's where I'm concerned. How are we shipping so many goals when we're not even giving up as many chances? As it's not like we're being bombarded and keepers making worldy saves and then we're conceding a goal or 2. It feels like any set piece we're vulnerable, any throw in we're vulnerable, a long ball over the top we're vulnerable, and that's the biggest concern for me right now. Because if you can stop leaking goals, you're always going to give your team a chance to win. And we know our team are capable of scoring. And if you look at Arsenal, I think they've conceded 3 goals in the Premier League, 4 goals maybe. So that's a great basis to build off. You only need to score 1 goal in a game then, and you're probably going to win it. For us, 4-2s, 2-2s, 3-2s, there's a lot of goals conceded. The Liverpool Prophet said, I don't even understand how Slot out is even a thing right now. It's mental. It is mental. And thankfully, there aren't many people that are Slot out. There are some, but there's always reactionary people. Like, I'm a reactionary person. I don't think that's breaking news to anybody, but I react to a certain level. I don't go all the way. Like, there's no way I'm sitting here now saying, yeah, he deserves to be sacked. Not at all. But others maybe are at that point. Like at our live show in Liverpool, we had a conversation where one guy in the front row said that he wants Slot sacked now, and you could hear the audible groan from everybody else of disapproval. And I was glad to hear that, because I'm not there yet, and I do think it is over the top to say so. But it can't continue. It cannot continue. And where you draw the line, I think, is a personal thing. Brad said, yeah, maybe if that was about out of context, my apologies. It's all just a bit frustrating at the moment because those results are just shocking. Much love. They are shocking, mate, and particularly losing to Manchester United at home. It should have been a game where the lads were looking forward to getting stuck in and looking forward to righting the wrongs. You know, it felt like the perfect game to get yourself back into winning ways against, you know, our arch rivals, but they didn't. We didn't, and we lost it, and it just now, unfortunately, ratchets up the pressure another little bit. Craig, did the flight take off? The Liverpool flight? I'm very confused about the question, Richie. If we're talking about Liverpool's flight to Frankfurt, yes. It took off 7:15. If I'm right on that one, Richie. It was delayed by 3 hours. The airport over there closes at 10 p.m. But I did see somewhere that Liverpool's flight took off at about 7:15. Although Arne Slot's obviously press conference there was cancelled. Himself and Szoboszlai were supposed to be doing a presser, and that was cancelled, I think, 40 minutes beforehand. But if you're talking about Liverpool's flight, yeah, it has taken off. There was a technical issue with the plane, but it's obviously sorted. John from the Liverpool said, hey Craig, curious question. Is there talk that the blue team in Merseyside is a better Liverpool team from the press or media? No. Not that I've seen. No. And if anybody from the media or press was saying that, I think they've lost the plot. Look, Everton have had a decent season and are certainly doing better under Moyes and in their new stadium, but no, there's nowhere near anywhere comparison for me between the two teams. We're just not performing. If we performed anywhere near our level, it's fair to say we're far better side than Everton. Right, so I asked you the question a few minutes ago, and I'm going to leave it running until about 9:30. So if you haven't voted yet, please do. The question that we're asking is, would you take Jurgen Klopp back right now if it was an option? Now, again, not saying it's likely to happen. It's just a talking point. So let me know by voting on that one, yay or nay. Right, Chris, how are we, sir? Said, I bet it was a relief for Slot that the plane was delayed, as unlike the protected press and conferences at Anfield, he would have been open to much more awkward questions tonight for Champions League pressers. Maybe, yeah. Maybe it was a relief. And I agree with you on the protected press conferences at Anfield, because it bugs me that, and it's not just an Anfield thing, it's an English football thing. I don't think they get anywhere near enough difficult questions asked to them as you would see in like American sports. You see managers, coaches being absolutely grilled by the media, and you know nothing is really off the table for a question. So yeah, sometimes I wonder, Chris, what's the point of these press conferences? A manager might as well go up there, read out the injury news, and talk about 2 or 3 other things and not take a single question from the press, because it's just rinse, repeat, and we don't really learn too much from the questions at a press conference because they're monotonous, boring questions because the journalists have one hand tied behind their back, and it just often feels pointless to me why they even do them, apart from the fact that they have to do them under the Premier League rules. FC Veteran said, Craig, are you really still trusting in Arne? I mean, yes and no. So, has some of the sheen been taken off? Yes, I would say that that's fair. Do I still trust him? Yes, I do. But I need to see him making the changes. You can't just keep doing the same things and hoping something is going to happen differently. So there's going to have to be some acknowledgement from him that there are underperforming players that are being picked on reputation over form. And there's also going to have to be an understanding from him that we need to change things or we're going to keep conceding. There's stuff he's got to figure out. And yes, to some extent, he can't go out there on the pitch and kick the ball for the players. But he can remove the underperforming players to show them that there is a level they have to hit. Because we always hear about standards in Liverpool, standards in the dressing room, standards on the training pitch. Well, those standards have to be met, or it's just waffle. You know, if there is such a thing as standards and these guys aren't hitting them, then what's the repercussion for that? You know, because I can sit here and talk about standards. We can all sit here and talk, but talk is cheap. Action is what's needed in some occasions, and there hasn't been enough of that, and not enough of a ruthless streak shown from the manager for me. Daydreaming. So Craig, if Slot went tomorrow, I would go for Zidane. None of the players, including Mo, is bigger than him. He's the Klopp aura, but work from because of who he is. I would disagree strongly for a couple of reasons. One, he doesn't speak English, and I don't want the manager coming into a dressing room that can't speak English, because I don't think it ever really works. Even with a translator, I don't think it really works. I think he's completely the wrong type of character to come into Liverpool. Zidane, I just don't see him being a Liverpool type coach. And also, you know, he's a one club coach. Now look, he won ridiculous amounts there with that Real Madrid team, but not for me, mate. It wouldn't be anywhere near the top of my list. But look, it's your personal opinion, and I appreciate you taking the time to share it. Christine said the Mirror reported that Arne was still working while he was away. I'm sure he was, but it still doesn't look great, Christina, does it? You know, you should be working at the AXA with your coaches and the players that are left behind after that aren't on international duty. Or you should be there working and looking at the under-21s and the under-18 players to see if there's anybody from that group that maybe is worth putting into a few training sessions to see if they could make a difference. So, you know, I could tell you I was working on my holiday, but the difference between me having a look at my phone on my holiday and me sitting on my computer putting in a full shift is very different. So, I just don't think it was a good look that he went away. And I'm not the only one. I've seen some other Liverpool fan accounts and channels unhappy with it as well. Corbyn said, I think that's what it would take for the owners. 2 more, and I think they will get rid of with the investment given. Yeah, look, it's hard for me to say yes or no, because I truly don't know what it would take for FSG to make a decision. What I would say is, surely at this point with FSG, they'd certainly be slowing down the contract talks with Arne at the minute, right? Or slow playing it a little bit, because you're not going to extend somebody in the middle of this poor run of form unless you have an unwavering belief that this is just a blip. But it's a risk, because ultimately it's going to be a risk that if it backfires would cost them more money. So I'm wondering, are the owners going to, you know, slow play this contract renewal? Or if he maybe gets back to winning ways in the next couple of games, maybe we're back to where we should be and things move forward, which is of course what we all want. Joseph said, Wirtz now deserves to start, being good lately, in my opinion. I'm right with you, mate. I think he absolutely deserves to start. And I thought he made a difference, as well as Ekitike and Jones, when he came on against Manchester United. And if we do want to start getting the best out of Isak, I think it's going to have to be with the likes of Wirtz in behind him, which is the position he was brought in to play. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Maka should be the one to give way in midfield at the minute. And I think you're talking about Wirtz and Jones really knocking on the manager's door and saying, look, give me my chance, because I think I've earned it. There was a few more I need to get through. I don't want that I like Slot. I don't know what you mean by I don't want that I like Slot. Yeah, sorry, man. I'm confused as to what you meant by that one. Look, I've always liked Arne Slot. You know, if you like anybody who thinks I'm trying to take cheap shots at him, go back and look at the man who was defending him when he was coming in. Because there were a lot of people saying he was going to be a sacrificial lamb. You know, the first one in after Jurgen, he was going to fail, and then Liverpool would bring in the next guy with less pressure. And I said all the time, I don't believe that for 1 second. Because I know Arne Slot has had opportunities to come to the Premier League and turned it down because he was waiting for the right job. And I know it took balls to take the job after Jurgen Klopp. And he won the league. And I defended him against the arguments from people saying he won it with Klopp's team. You can go back and watch it as recently as 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was saying, no, I don't think that's fair to say he won it with Klopp's team, because Klopp didn't win it with that team the season before, and Arne found a way to keep players fit and available. So, you know, I've tried to be supportive and really fair to the manager, but I can't just keep looking at Liverpool losing and just keep saying it'll be great, it'll be great, it'll be great. Something has to change. Stevie Boy said, so why has Liverpool spent money on Frimpong? Typical Slot, no trust in the player. That I'm really confused about, Stevie Boy. Really, really confused about, because I assumed when Frimpong was bought that he was going to be the guy and that Bradley would be there to push him, but that we were going to see Frimpong playing right back week in, week out with Kirkes on the other side. Now, we have seen the manager occasionally bring in Andy Robertson. I just think with Frimpong, mate, again, it's a signing that I don't know where he was brought in to play. Was he brought in to play at right back? Was he brought in to be Mohamed Salah option for cover? Or I don't know. But it feels like another player who doesn't have a home yet on the pitch. And we haven't seen... Because I don't think you're going to get players to the best level by constantly moving them around and not giving them, you know, a run of 5, 6, 7 games in a position. And you also need to then start building up those relationships. And we're severely lacking down our right-hand side at the minute. You know, Mohamed Salah doesn't have the people around him he was used to. His form has dipped. We keep changing fullbacks. We've had Frimpong, we've had Bradley, we've had, I think, Endo play fullback for a few minutes in a game. We've had Soboslai. You know, just too much change there. Some of it, you know, the manager had injuries, but it is what it is. You know, we need to settle on the best back four and keep going. Wow, 4-0 Arsenal. Woo! God almighty, it was 0-0 at half time, and then they've really turned it on their second half, haven't they? Craig, do you know that if we lose 5 in a row, it'll be the first time in 72 years, which would be an absolute disgrace? I'm not even old enough to remember that, said Prada Tyler. I mention it yesterday. It's 1958 or something like that, since we've lost 5 in a row. And you don't lose 5 in a row at Liverpool Football Club. You just don't. Like, even 4 in a row is unacceptable. So, it just can't happen, mate. Barry Greenberg said, Craig, is it our defence? I just wish we got the Crystal Palace defender before the transfer deadline day. Liverpool would have been in a different position. So, yes, it is our defence, but the defence also needs to be helped out from the guys ahead of them. So, we're carrying too many passengers at the minute. Not enough tracking back. Salah's not having to work back. Isak, when he played, would be working back. So we don't have the same work rate and energy levels as we did previously. So a lot of things have dropped 5-10%, and those things all added up just have put us into this position. But yeah, the defence needs to be sorted out, because we have a centre-back who maybe moved on in Gomez, and I'll talk about that in a minute. You've got a centre-back in Canade who we don't know his future, and you've got Virgil who doesn't seem to trust the left-back on, you know, this side of him. So a lot there to unpick, and that's the position for me we need to go at next, is definitely sorting out the centre-back situation. Right, let me go to a story from yesterday that I didn't get a chance to cover, which was Eduardo Camavinga is said to be bitter about his diminishing role at Real Madrid this season amid rumours linking him with a potential move to Liverpool. He'd only played 141 minutes under Xabi Alonso so far in this campaign. Now, I would bite your hand off for Eduardo Camavinga at Liverpool. I would absolutely take him tomorrow. What about you guys? Now, I'm not saying we're getting him. I'm not saying this, story hasn't been exaggerated in the Spanish media. But I'd take him tomorrow if he was available. I think he's a really, really, really good footballer. JT14 said, would you go for 3 at the back and play the wing backs higher up? Frimpong, Canade, Van Dijk, Gomez, Robbo. We don't have enough personnel to play 3 at the back. If we're looking at it from the point of view of we need 2 players in every position, if we're playing 3 at the back, we need 6 centre-backs at the club. And we've got 3 and 1 injured. So we just don't have the personnel to play 3 at the back. It is a system I like, though, 3 at the back. But I don't see any indication that Arne would look to play it. So yeah, unfortunately, no, I just don't think we have enough defenders to do it. Where are we? Richie, how are we, dude? Craig, do you remember when Klopp lost 7 home games in a row, wasn't sacked, and still finished 3rd? Keep the faith up. Yep, we discussed that on the podcast as well, Richie. I think it was a good point Connor brought up. But like I said, it's the context of how you lose them. 7 home games in a row, fair enough. But if you're winning the away games, then it's like a win, a loss, a win, a loss, a win, a loss, or whatever. But when these are all in a row, like, it's demoralising. Let's be honest. Galatasaray aren't great. There's no way on this planet we should have lost to them. It's no disgrace losing to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. It's a difficult place to go at the best of times. And Crystal Palace were in a great run of form as well. So, but United, that should have been the game where we answered the critics. That should have been the game where we put this right, because if you can't get yourself up to really perform in that game after 3 losses in a row, that felt like the perfect chance to really, get confidence back up and get the fans happier again. You beat United, and that means a lot to Liverpool fans. Right, where are we at next one? Daydreaming. So biggest change is we don't press from the front. Yep, and I noticed that against Manchester United. I kept screaming, press, press, press. Where's the press? Because we're giving them time. If you're not pressing them, they've got time to look around, to get their head up, to pick out a teammate. And I'm a big believer in defending from the front. Ian Rush used to be brilliant at this, even back in the day. If your forwards are pressing and your midfielders then backing up that press, and you're condensing the pitch like we used to do under Jurgen, it takes a very good team to play around that press, or they just go long and look to relieve the pressure, in which case you win that second ball and you go back at them again. It feels like we're in the middle of two things. We're not attack-minded enough with the press, and we can't defend for shit. One long ball over the top is all it takes to open up our defence. And that's embarrassing. Like I said, I did watch back the incident with the head clash with McAllister. And I'm going to give context to what I'm about to say, but Dermot Gallagher's full of shit. Let me start off by saying that one. Dermot, you're full of shit. He said that Michael Oliver had 5 seconds and didn't have a chance to really see what happened with McAllister. Bullshit. Look at it. He stares at him and then runs a bit and glances back at him. So we knew damn well that McAllister was on the ground. So that is nonsense. It was also just under 10 seconds, not 5 seconds. So again, this is just Dermot Gallagher protecting referees on Sky, which is why the whole point of Ref Watch is bullshit. Because all Dermot Gallagher does, with maybe the very rare exception, is find a way to justify the referee shitting the bed. Now, on Match of the Day, they went another weird route with it. They said that they let the play on when McAllister was down, but they also let the play on when Harry Maguire was down. But there's a big difference in that. Because both of those benefited Manchester United. Because when McAllister was down, United went and scored. But when Maguire was down, he played an advantage to Manchester United. So it wasn't like Maguire was down, Liverpool took the ball and ran the attack. No, he played an advantage knowing Maguire was on the ground. So to even try to connect those two things, I think is embarrassing from pundits on Match of the Day. Because there's a huge difference between them. Both those issues benefited United. So how the fuck they tried to say that the ref played on in both incidents when, like I've said, it clearly shows that they both benefited United. Now, this isn't me saying Oliver was pro-United, but I'm just saying that argument is nonsense. Boxing Fact said, you disapprove of Jones and now you approve of him from the start. Why do you hypocrite yourself? So, firstly, Boxing Facts, learn how to use the word hypocrite and spell it. Secondly, you are allowed change in opinion, dickhead. Like, do you just make one decision on something in your life and never change your opinion? Wouldn't it be worse if I didn't change my opinion? Because people like you aren't intelligent enough to have a go at people like me. Let me make that really clear. I'm going to stand my ground here. You don't have the intelligence to have this conversation with me, because I will rip you to shreds. Having an opinion is something that should change over time if the circumstances of that opinion change. If I sat here consistently saying Jones is still shit, I would have an agenda against Jones. Now, as I said, you're probably not sharp enough to figure that out. But everybody's opinion changes in life, mate. Do you make one opinion on a friend or a colleague or somebody, and that never changes no matter what happens? So if you don't like somebody on day one, but then they help you change your tyre when they see it on the side of the road, or they make sure that your kid's okay if something happens out on the street, are you so dumb that you can't figure out that opinions are just that, opinions that change. People like you don't deserve my time, quite frankly, because you're an idiot. And I'm being blunt about this because you're trying to undermine and ridicule me, but you're not fit to do it, sir. You're not intelligent enough to do it. You're not in my fucking league. So sit down, shut the fuck up, and let the adults talk, because you haven't got a clue what you're talking about. So again, boxing facts, you're full of shit. You don't have a fucking clue. That's how you lose your subs, mate. I don't give a shit. Do you not understand this? You idiots think that I should sit here while somebody slags me off, and when I have a pop back, that's how you lose subs. Grand, I don't fucking want them. I don't want people to come in and be an asshole. He could have said, Craig, when did your opinions on Curtis Jones change? What made your opinion change? But did he do that? No. He came in to call me a hypocrite. Now, why the fuck should I show somebody who calls me a hypocrite any respect? Answer me that. So I don't give a shit if I lose subs, because there's subs I don't fucking want. I don't care if people come in to be an arsehole. They can fuck off all day, all night, and all the next day, and so can you in your opinion. I've earned my place here through hard work and dedication. I've shown respect to every single person that has shown it to me. But dickheads and idiots like you aren't fit to have a conversation with me. So if that loses me subscribers, so be it. I couldn't give a fucking shite. Anyway, we move on. I'm so much more confident of myself since the Liverpool show, when people came up and told me what the channel meant to them, what I meant to them, what I've done to impact their lives in a positive way. So if you think anyone should sit there and be spoken down to and be polite back to them, then you're an idiot. Where was I at? Biggest change. We've done that one. Mohammed said, do you remember how good we are as a pressing team, especially during the Klopp era? I miss those days. Yeah, I miss them dramatically, dude. It was one of my favourite things. It was the chaos, you know, and we were always at our best in those moments of chaos, especially if you look back to some of the games against against Manchester City and stuff. It was those chaos that suited us. And obviously Arne has a very more rigid philosophy of the way he wants to play. He wants to keep the ball. He wants to, you know, pass teams to death. But it feels like we're in this middle ground, Mohammed, of we're not doing the Pep Guardiola style of killing teams with possession. And it almost feels like we're just keeping possession for the sake of keeping possession. You know, we're not doing anything with that possession. You know, if you're normally looking at fullbacks moving the ball side to side, they're doing so because they want to create an overload, or your centre-backs want to shift the players over. But what we're more often doing is playing the ball into a decent attacking area, and then it's just coming straight back at us, and then the team is resetting. So it feels like he hasn't committed to anything. You either commit to that PSG style, or you commit to the keep the ball, move the ball, but then you don't get to moan about low blocks. Because do we not think that Manchester City, Guardiola and that team have been playing against low blocks since he came in? But they find ways to get around them, and they beat those low blocks. So for our manager to be talking about low blocks like it should be illegal for a team to defend, I find it really condescending, to be honest with you, to those other teams. They're playing to their strengths. They don't owe you anything. Like, you start talking about United not playing Sesko, having played Sesko in every game. Who cares? That's not... Don't worry about that, mate. You worry about your team. And you worry about why you brought in Florian Wirtz, Isak, Ekitike, and these superstars, and you're still moaning about a low block. Because that's not good enough. It's your job to figure out ways to beat low blocks. Not to sit there crying when teams do it. Because teams have been doing that against us in the Premier League for the last 7 or 8 years. So figure it out or don't. But to use it as an excuse is just absolute nonsense. And I've yet to hear any contrition from Arne, any hands up to go, yeah, it's not good enough. It's not good enough, and I'm going to make sure it's good enough. It always feels like it's something else was the reason. You know, we did this, so it should have been this, or they did that, so we were lucky with this. No, mate. We've lost 4 games in a row. Figure this shit out. Or don't. But excuses are just that, excuses. Now, really quickly, I want to go back to this whole thing about the that's how you lose subscribers thing. And this is why I was so adamant and so determined to stand my ground. Because I believe that I am a very, very kind and a very, very polite person when I'm shown that same politeness. But anybody that thinks you, I, a YouTuber, a podcaster, a shop assistant, somebody working in the pub, or anybody else deserves to be spoken down to and treat that person with respect, I'm sorry, ain't me. You either show respect to my community and me, or you do one. And you won't be missed. And I don't care if I lose 10,000 subscribers, 50,000 subscribers. I care about having the right people here. And anybody that wants to come in and have a cheap shot at me can go. And that shouldn't... It's the hill I'm going to die on in content. Because the onus shouldn't be on me to overlook the idiots. The onus should be on the idiots not being given the platform to be an idiot. If your only goal is to come in and be an asshole, you are having a very miserable life. And you need help. So if that's who you are and that's what you're going to do, then yeah, I don't want you here. Because I love my community. And they know me. And they know my good heart. But I'm not going to sit here to take shit from anybody. Especially people that don't know me. So, like I said, these guys talk about hypocrisy when... Why shouldn't I change my opinion? If I didn't change my opinion on somebody, that is a bigger issue. Like if I was sitting here saying Jones, well, maybe Jones isn't the best example because people are still up and down on him. But let's say Szoboszlai, right? Let's say Szoboszlai. When Szoboszlai first came into Liverpool, it took him a while to settle in, and there was a lot of people who were writing him off. Now, for me, Szoboszlai's improved, and most of us have said, yes, Dominic Szoboszlai's improved. But if I didn't say to you he'd improved when the evidence was clearly to the contrary, I'd be having an agenda against the player. Anybody's opinion in life should always evolve. My opinion on FSG, I discussed it in a video, has evolved. Every opinion should evolve. Because if you don't, despite evidence to the contrary, then you have an agenda, and that's unhealthy. So this is what I'm saying. These people aren't clever enough to have these conversations. Because one, he couldn't spell hypocrite, which, you know, is funny in itself when he's trying to use big words. But secondly, life is about evolving beliefs. And, you know, I met my wife, and I wasn't immediately in love with my wife the second I met her. It took 2 years of friendship before anything romantic happened between me and my wife. You know, because my opinion evolved. If that isn't you in your life, then you're doing life wrong. Spency, how are we, sir? So, thoughts on Fabregas? I wouldn't sack Arne, though. Honestly, I haven't kept track. I know he's managing Como over in Serie A. I couldn't even tell you what style of football Cesc Fabregas plays. I know he's doing well over there with Como, but yeah, Spency, man, I haven't got a clue. I wouldn't even be able to tell you how he sets his teams up. So, you know, as a footballer, an incredibly good, tidy footballer, but as a coach, man, I really don't know. Rachel, how are we, my friend? Rachel Todd said, do you think the players are playing for Arne? That is something at the moment, Rachel, I have to say I am slightly unsure of. Because morale doesn't seem to be at its best, right? Now, of course, you can say not winning games of football, morale's not at its best. That's fair enough as well. But I'm unsure, Rachel. I'm unsure. You know, it isn't impossible to think there might be players that are unhappy with how things are or the way that we're playing. And there's a lot of gesticulating towards each other from some of the players out there on the pitch. But one thing Liverpool players have always done under Jurgen and under Arne is that they don't hide. They're not cowards. They go out there and they try. They try to find a way. And they found a way to get back into the game against United, and then they found a way to lose it. So I've never seen evidence of players throwing the manager under a bus. And I haven't yet seen it either. Of all the things we can say about our boys, they've always had balls, always had courage, and they've always given it everything. So I'm not saying they've lost faith in them, but I do think that there was something that I can't quite put my finger on that doesn't feel right at the moment. But maybe that's just, again, the results kind of making me put the tinfoil hat on a little bit, right? So I don't know. This one, Jurgen Splurgen, said the amount of changes for any other team would be called rebuilding. Chemistry has suffered no preseason. I think you meant... chemistry has suffered no preseason for McAllister. Big problem. Stop heading the ball to no one. That last part, dude, I'm right with you on, especially. I've been saying that about us for a couple of seasons now. We can't seem to aim a header properly towards our own players. On the rest of the comment, yeah, a lot of changes. That's true. We did. Even if you look at it from the point of view of, we're one of the first teams I can remember who's went out, won a league title, and then made, quite a few squad changes. But I'd also be a liar, dude, if I said to you that I wasn't excited about each and every one of those squad players or new players that were brought in. On the face of it, look at it, they're brilliant. Isak, Wirtz, Ekitike, Frimpong, Kirkes. If I sat here and said to you I was unhappy with any one of those signings, I'd be a liar. Frimpong I was somewhat on the fence with, but I could understand the signing. But the rest really excited me, mate. Really, really excited me. So, is it a growing pains thing, dude? Maybe. Yeah, it's certainly. That's what we hope, right? We do hope that it's a growing pains thing and it's a chemistry thing and that it will build up over time. But to do that, I would also argue that you need to settle on somewhat of a best 11 and go with that as well. Because these relationships that are really important around the pitch, they're not built overnight. They're built over time and repetition and understanding. And it looks like at the minute, and the biggest example to me is certainly Isak, although the smallest sample size of the new players, we really don't look like we have a plan for how to utilise Alexander Isak. Ekitike is a little bit different. He's got more of that Bobby Firmino, comes looking for the ball, comes deep a bit, tries to connect things up, will almost try to make a chance as well. Whereas Isak can drift into the channels and stuff, but he's more play on the shoulder. And get him in one-on-one with the keeper. So some of that's correct. And the McAllister part that you've said as well, mate, he just hasn't looked right. This is why I was so surprised that he started him against Manchester United, because, Mac has earned the right to have a bit of a brief dip in form because he's been absolutely brilliant for us since he's come in and he plays a lot of footy. But I just felt it was very strange for him to start him in that game at the weekend over, let's say, Wirtz, because you could argue neither of them have really hit the heights that we would hope for. But at least with Wirtz, you have the fact he's settling in. Whereas with McAllister, he was late back, one of the last players back from international duty. He played a full 90 minutes late again, like I said, on international duty, and his form for us hasn't been great. Yeah, I think that was one that really surprised me when I seen the team sheet. Naturalist said, things have not felt right for a while. Not sure what it is to do with, but I think Slot being rather stubborn can be a problem, especially if he keeps insisting on starting players who aren't performing. So this is kind of where my little bit of actual hypocrisy comes in, Naturalist, because in one breath I did say to you that I think we should pick the settled team and keep playing a lot of these players to build up these relationships. But I don't think he's even doing that because there's still changes. So yes, he's playing underperforming players, but I don't think he's doing it because he wants a settled 11. So yeah, somewhere in the middle of that is probably my answer. Benjamin Palmer, how are you, Benjamin? Said, to counter that argument, Robbo is still there, Bradley is there, he can play the same midfield as last season if he wants, the only change is at striker. That's also kind of true. You could put out Bradley, Canade, Van Dijk, Robbo, the midfield that won the league last year, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, McAllister, Salah on the right, Gakpo on the left, and then the only change will be striker. Absolutely. So your point is also valid, which is what I would have wanted them to do when this blip started. Is if you think the new players aren't there quite yet, well, maybe to stop the rot, go back to the old team. And I guess you could say that's what he did with the midfield against Manchester United, and it didn't work. We do have confirmation, by the way, that Ryan Gravenberch will be unavailable for the match tomorrow. That came out a little bit earlier on. So Anfield Sector posted a quote from Arne Slot that said Ryan is not available for the Frankfurt game, but hopefully he'll be available for Brentford at the weekend. So fingers crossed we get him back soon. On this one second. On Fabrizio Romano. Again, we've got conflicting information on this, because Romano said there's no release clause in Michael Olise's contract at FC Bayern, announced by director Max Erbel. The contract is valid until June 2029. No release clause is included, and Olise is on his way to becoming one of the best players. Now, if that's true, and Max Erbel is 100% honest, then why aren't the German journalists being rinsed on this? Because I've seen different versions of, I think, Falk, Plettenberg, and a few others say that the release clause is there. They've differed on when they think that release clause becomes active. But how do these guys keep getting away with it if they're so wrong? If Max Erbel's telling the truth and there was 100% no release clause in Olise's contract, then how are these journalists in a job? Because it's just more lies. And again, they don't seem to get held to account for it. So let's see. He's now backed himself into a corner, Max Erbel, because if ever they do lose Michael Olise and it's for a release clause amount, well, he's going to be shown up to be a liar as well. So somebody's telling Porky somewhere in all of this. Right, Semenyo. Let's talk a little bit about Antoine Semenyo. So there's a couple of things about him today. So the newspaper, I think it's Mark Douglas, said Liverpool consider a January move for Antoine Semenyo as pressure grows on out of favour Mo Salah. I think the wording of that is incorrect, because out of favour is not right, because Arne's playing him, so he's not out of favour with the manager. So that's one part that I'd slightly disagree with. And on the second part, it's Liverpool are considering a January move for Antoine Semenyo. Now, I do hope that's the case. He wouldn't be my first choice to come in at right back. Right wing, or as a wide attacking player. I like Nico Williams, but Antoine Semenyo is the right age, 25, that he could come into Liverpool and be ready to be the guy. He is Premier League proven. He's had a very good start to the season. He does have that pace and power that we're lacking in areas. And if he's the one the club decide they want, cool, go get him. United, also very interested. And the release clause that's in his contract, I don't know what the amount is, but I've seen people talking about a 75, 80 million pound valuation. And again, look, maybe that's what it's going to take to bring in the long-term Salah successor. But if the club really want Antoine Semenyo, then I hope that they move as quickly as possible. On Joe Gomez, Sport Witness have said that Liverpool is reportedly open to letting Joe Gomez join AC Milan in January, with the transfer fee expected to be between 8.6 and 13 million. Not for 1 second do I think that Liverpool are willing to sell Joe Gomez in January, because why would we? Why would we then leave ourselves with two centre-backs? Even if you brought one in, you're still walking the same tightrope. So unless Liverpool go out there and sign two centre-backs in January, there's no world in which Joe Gomez leaves the club to go to AC Milan. So yeah, that's what it would take for me before Liverpool would be even considering it. Steph said, why no press conference today? The Liverpool plane was 3 hours late going, unfortunately. There was some technical issues with the plane and they didn't take off till 7:15, so hence no press conference. There was one planned, but like I said, the plane delay put paid to that one. This one. Liquid said it's on him to turn it around or he's losing his job. Yeah, 100% agree with that. The players aren't going to lose their jobs. They might be moved on eventually, but you're right, mate. It's on the manager. The manager won the league last year, got given the keys to the kingdom, got a load of dough, amount of money that we've all been hoping a Liverpool manager gets, brought in really, really top quality players, and We all said at the start of the season, excuses aren't going to wash now. You've been given the tools, the players, and the aim is to dominate English and European football. That's the plan. So losing 4 in a row ain't part of that plan. So I agree. Any advice on how to come out to parents about your sexuality? I'm sure your mum and dad will love you. Be honest with them, mate. Your parents will love you. And look, you know, I've never had to have a conversation with my parents about anything that worried me, you know, or that I thought would be an issue. But what I will say to you is your parents love you. And I'm sure that they will love you no matter who or what type of person you love. You know, if you're gay, if you're straight, if you're bi, I'm sure your parents will love you, mate. And, you know, that's the most important thing in all of this. They'll want their child to be happy. They'll want their child to find somebody to spend the rest of their lives with and love that person. And, you know, and I obviously don't know your parents, mate, but I'm sure that they will be understanding and accepting of who their child is. You know, and much love to you from me anyway. I'll say that to you. Yeah, I've always said on the channel, mate, I want my friends, my subscribers, I want you to have a happy life. I want you to live a full life. I want you to live a life that, you know, you want to live. I don't care who you love as long as you're happy. That's the most important thing to me, and I'm sure to your parents it'll be the very same, dude. They'll just want you to be happy. Martin, and by the way, these things are the parts of Craig that these arseholes that don't want to put out there. The always angry, losing the head part. They always seem to forget the 99 other times that I show who I really am. Where am I in this one? Martin said, the run of form and the fact that Slot took a holiday to Dubai has left Slot needing to reprove himself to be Liverpool manager. I don't disagree. He's certainly got to prove himself now, mate. You know, he's won the league and that is, you know, incredible. Incredible. I didn't expect it last year and my God, I enjoyed it. But we need to build on that now. And I understand that there's going to be some shaky patches. I think we all thought there will be periods of bedding in. There will be. But this feels a bit more than just bedding in, right? This feels a bit more, I don't know, it feels a bit more concerning to me than just players bedding in. Because players bedding in, to me, it doesn't really help as to why we're conceding. I'm not so concerned about the attack. I'm really concerned about how many we're conceding, though. And how easily we're conceding them. Craig Hughes, how are we? Said, being honest, Craig, as a team, is this team better than the Klopp squad he inherited? Does anybody know what style of play is going forward? Is this team better than this one Klopp squad he inherited? I don't think I can give you an answer on that yet because we don't have a big enough sample size of it. It should be. You know, if we look at the caliber of players, just solely based off their bodies of work in other teams, it should be better. But what you can't measure, I guess, is heart, fight, determination, spirit. You know, these are things that you can't really put a number on. So, for me, this is a better squad because it has a better collection of good players. But you've often heard us say the same thing. The thing that differentiated us with Jurgen was we were better than the sum of our parts. We punched above our weight at times, you know, financially and, of course, on the pitch. And, you know, the midfield that was so often derided at Liverpool with Henderson and that in it, that was a functional midfield that knew its job. So that's what I would say to you. I can't say if it's a better team or not because we don't have a big enough sample size, but I can tell you that the options for him are better than in Jurgen Klopp's time. And of course, you loved the situation with Mane, Salah, Firmino. Man, that front three was incredible. That was absolutely incredible. I loved every minute of watching those guys play together. But this team just rattle through the names in it. Like it's a who's who of talent. This one, Virgil. Said, hey man, what about this formation? Mama in goal, centre back Canada and Virgil, left back and right back Robbo and Gomez, mid Grav, Soboslai, Wirtz, Chiesa, Ekatika, Isak. Let me just flip through that. That's the team, Virgil, that I put in my prediction, I believe, that I'd like to see as well. It shouldn't even, like, if it wasn't Mohamed Salah we were talking about here on the right, if it was another player, it wouldn't even be a conversation about dropping him. It would be a done thing. So it feels like at this point it is just Mo's reputation that's keeping him on the team sheet. Whereas Chiesa, you hear from managers that players need to take the chances when they're given them, right? We hear this over and over and over again. Players, when they're given the chance, need to take them. What more can Federico Chiesa do? I truly don't know what more he can do. If he was coming on and doing nothing in games, you'd almost be saying, well, the manager's right. He's not taking his chances. But every single time this man takes to the pitch, in what is usually a short period of time on there, he is making a difference. So it seems insane to me that he's not starting games when he looks like he gives a shit. He looks like he has a point to prove, and he is doing the business when he's on the pitch. It is absolutely just insane. I can't, like, I can't figure it out. I just can't. It eats away at me trying to figure out what on earth is happening here with Federico Chiesa. The Gakido said, Craig, how would you feel if there's no formation change tomorrow and he makes the same decisions again? I'm curious what will be the reaction. So formation, I think you mean team selection, because I'm not really expecting the formation to change that much. But team selection, if it was same again, which it can't be because Gravenberch isn't there, but I'll still take your point on. It depends on the result. If he does the same thing and we win, then maybe you're saying, okay, well, things are starting to change. If he does the same thing and it's not working out again and he doesn't react to it, then you're just going to have more anger from me and other Liverpool fans asking why he isn't addressing the issues. You can't bury your head in the sand. You can't hide. This is Liverpool Football Club. So there is no time for excuses. Find the solutions and find them quickly. What else we got? David said, Craig, what were you like in the stands after Salah hoofed the shot wide? So honestly, I had a really bad angle of that because I was kind of in line with the goal post and the corner flag. I was right behind that at that end of the pitch. So I didn't really have the best angle to see how far high or wide that shot was. But it was a head in hands moment, knowing that he missed that chance there. It was certainly one I expected. I think, was it Robbo or Jones? Somebody already had their hand up celebrating. I think it was maybe Jones. So yeah, didn't have the best view of it, but when I watched the back on Match of the Day, it wasn't great, was it? It wasn't great. Right, so we've had over 2,000 votes now in the poll, nearly 2,200, and we asked everybody, would you take Klopp back right now? And 70% said yes, they would take Klopp back right now, which is a very interesting one. Like I've said, I'm going to stay on for a bit longer because I'm really enjoying tonight's stream, even with the little angry rants earlier on. And again, I keep coming back to this. I hope you guys know that I would never go in on kind people the way I do on people who come in to be an arsehole. I'm sure you know enough about me at this point to know that I only do that for the people that I think are trying to be disrespectful to us. I would never do that to somebody who comes in with a genuine concern or question, and I've hope over my time on here I've proven that to you. And I know people say ignore it, but as stubborn as I am, and this is my stubborn streak, I don't think the onus should be on me to ignore it, or should be on Goldbridge to ignore it, or should be on True Geordie to ignore it, or Robbie to ignore it. I think the onus should be on expecting people to be better people. I'm really big on that. And one of the highlights of the live show we did in Liverpool, and the reason why I'm feeling so much more confidence in myself now, a mother came up to me at the end of the show with her 3 sons, all various stages of teens. And she said to me, you won't know this, but the channel and your community have kept my 3 sons off the street. has given one of my son the confidence, because you gave him a shout out for his music channel, to continue on with music after his friends were giving him a bit of stick with it. My other son can't get a job and is struggling, but he heard that your daughter was struggling as well. And then he realised that maybe it's not just him, it's just difficult out there. And my other son was running with the wrong crowd, and listening to you speak about the right type of influence that young people should be having got him back in. And I nearly cried, because I don't think of myself as having that type of an impact on anybody. I just think of myself as being somebody to come on here and have a bit of a chat with you about a club that we all love. But I was so moved. Like, person after person that came up just said how I'd impacted their lives in a positive way. And it's so humbling to hear, because I don't think anything of myself other than I'm a normal working class fella. But that show, the last one that I'm ever doing, I couldn't have asked for it to have finished any better. It was just, I've never felt so loved outside of my family. And it meant so much to me for everybody to come up and share their own little individual stories, because, you know, we don't know. All I know when people comment is I see a user picture and words. That's it. You know, I don't know if you're 10, if you're 80, you know, if you're coming in to be on the level, if you're coming in to wind up. I don't know. I just see words on the screen. So I try to take everyone at face value. And that show, man, it just gave me so much more confidence that I am, you know, I'm doing the right thing. TRBWKMH said, Craig, would you start Gakpo for the Frankfurt game or the Brentford game? So, no, but I would understand if he did. So I don't think Gakpo is the problem, but I do think I'd like to see a different front three. So let's say, and I mentioned this I think at the start of the stream, I would like Chiesa, Isak and Ekitike. But if somebody said, Craig, to be fair, it should be Chiesa, Ekitike, Gakpo, because Isak hasn't been pulling up any trees, I think that would be a very understandable point as well. Yeah, I don't think Gakpo is the problem, but I do think the fact that we don't have another natural alternative competitor for him out there that the manager feels he can play is a problem, because no competition for anybody, I think, is a problem. So yeah, no, I don't mind if he plays Gakpo, because I don't think Gakpo is the biggest issue. But personally, I'd like to see us go with Ekitike, Isak and Chiesa. Billy Beckner said, we love your resilience and honesty, Craig. You're absolutely right. We shouldn't accept bullying. We should stand up against the little bullies who live to hate on others. Thank you. So just to give you an example on that again, I told you about the emails I'd received, threatening to blow up the show, threatening to shoot me, threatening to do this, that and the other, threatening if I show up in Liverpool, this and that's going to happen. Well, I was there. I was at the show. I was at Liverpool. I was at the stadium. I was walking around. I was there. And of course, these people showed themselves up to be just full of shit. And that's why I was so adamant I was doing these shows. You know, you're not going to bully me into changing my life one bit. I'm there to do what I want to do. And if you want to come and make an issue out of it, show up. Don't hide behind the keyboard and talk. If you have a problem with me and you want to take something up with me, I'm not hard to find. But don't sit behind the keyboard and give a Billy Big Bollocks when you haven't got the guts to show up and show the world who you are. Jim Anderson, how are we, Makara? Said, you're a great guy. Everybody loves you except the trolls. And who gives a stuff about them? I certainly don't, Jim. It's the opinions of you guys that I care for. Every decision I make about this channel is with you guys in mind. You know, you're my community. You are my friends. You are my online family. And I mean that from every fibre of my being. This channel is not a business to me. You know, this channel has given me the ability for it to become a business, but this channel is about the human connection and the respect I feel for you guys and the respect I feel back as well. Mary said, this is not only a football channel, we each share each other's story on our lives and try to help each other. 100%, Mary. 100%. Which is what, that was, ironically, Mary, that's one of the things I always struggled most with at the live shows, because I didn't know how much of it was to be about football and how much of it people maybe wanted to know about my own life, or, you know, that's, I struggled with that because I could tell you stories about my life for hours. But, you know, some people come in, they want Liverpool news, and I have to be aware of that as well, which is why I tried to do the pre-recorded videos. to make sure that if somebody just wants to come in and just get Liverpool news, then I've got their 8-minute video covered there. And if people want to come in and, you know, share their own journey and talk about things, I want to be here for that as well. You know, I want to be here for people who need a connection, who need to make friends, who just want to feel part of a community. Because, you know, how many times have we heard from people, like there was a gentleman last night that said, I'm in the middle of America and I don't really have any Liverpool fans around me, and this channel and the community is a connection to the club. That makes me so proud, you know, that all of us are doing that for this person. Right, let's keep going. That one. David said, I don't know our style of play. All we do is play from side to side, and our build-up play is very slow. So we touched a bit on this, David, last night. I feel it almost a bit ironic that we do what you've said, because we do, and then Arne complains about a low block, when so many times we've gotten into an advanced position and then we go backwards, which only adds to their ability to utilise the low block. So you're 100% right. We're not moving the ball quickly enough. We're not creating, in my opinion, enough overloads in wide areas. We're not stretching the pitch enough. And then to counter that, we're also not condensing the pitch enough out of possession. You know, if you watch Jurgen and you watch how we played, we basically tried to condense the pitch down to the middle third of the pitch at times. We were playing with such a high line and pressing from the front. We were trying to smother teams. And it sounds simplistic, but if you can win the ball back higher up the pitch or turn over possession, you've less distance to get to the goal. Like, it's not rocket science. There's a reason you're seeing so many teams kicking off now and just belting the ball towards the corner flag. Because if you can win the ball up the pitch, you've less distance to get to the goal. And what we're doing, you're right, it's this kind of hodgepodge of nothing. It isn't committing to one or the other. And it's a topic we discuss on the podcast tonight, but I would challenge anybody to tell me what our style is, because I like to think I know football, to, you know, as much as any lay person who isn't a qualified coach could know football, and I have not got a clue what our style of football is. I couldn't sum it up in a few sentences for you, without saying pretty much what you've said, mate, which is passing the ball side to side, going backwards and being too cautious, but yet that overcautiousness still not being enough to help us keep clean sheets. Jeremy K said, teams used to be worried to play us. Now we're a gettable team. That's going to change how teams play against us. Yep, and it was the same with City. When City were at their pomp, teams were just rolling over at times because they just knew there's no point. You know, let's focus on the next week's game and put more effort into that one. But now we're a weakened Premier League champions and people are sniffing, you know, or smelling blood in the water. So yeah, they're going to have a go. It becomes their cup final. And we're now that team that, like United, look at that as an example. Both sets of managers went into that game with question marks over what was happening. And only one team came out of that game now with a renewed sense of vigour and belief. And it ain't us. You know, United came and got the win. They know what that meant to their fans. They know the pressure that took off their manager. And we're on the other side of that, and the exact opposite. Sorry, where was I? Crimbo said, love your honesty, mate. Hope you and the fam are good. Family are all good. Thank you, mate. All good. Shoulders slowly starting to be less painful for me day by day, which I'm very grateful for. But yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. The real Johnny Sins, Craig, would you take Bowen in January? No, he's too old now. I think you've been around quite a while, mate. I love Jared Bowen, and 3-4 years ago I was saying he would be ideal for us because he would, the way he plays, he would have been brilliant. But no, not now. He's 31 years of age, so, and he signed a long-term contract at West Ham, so I wouldn't, but you know, at one time, absolutely. Mohammed said, do you think that Slot doesn't like direct running players? That's why he sold Diaz. And he doesn't like play guys like Chiesa and Ngamoa. I couldn't really say, Mohammed, if it's something Slot doesn't like, but I would say to you, bro, I think it is something that we're missing. You know, I love a winger who runs at fullbacks. You know, I love it because it makes them make a decision. And sometimes you're going to be dispossessed and lose out, but sometimes you can draw a foul, sometimes you can get a ricochet, you can find a way through. You can also get the fullback on a yellow, and then they're walking a tightrope for the rest of the game. But not taking men on the way that we haven't been with that lack of pace, I do think it's one of the problems that we have. But I can't say to you whether Slot doesn't like direct running players or not. I know he does like, he likes possession football, but I just don't think we're playing any way of a style of football that is getting the best of the players that we have in the team. Paul Beer asked a fair question. Do the players know what they should be doing? Honestly, Paul, mate, I couldn't answer that one, dude. They don't look like they know what they should be doing. But, yeah, I don't know. We need to take more chances. What I would think Arne should do with the minute is either fully commit to that PSG system of fullbacks high up the pitch, press, or drop the fullbacks back a little bit and then try to figure out other ways to be, find a way to score but keep that defensive solidity. At the minute, how many times have we seen our fullbacks making runs forward but they're ignored? And so much, like I was right in front of Gakpo and Kirkes for the whole of that second half. And the amount of times that you did see Kirkes make an over-underlapping run, but he wasn't even drawing a defender because they knew he wasn't going to get the ball. They knew Gakpo was going to come inside, or they knew Gakpo was going to turn and pass the ball. So it was almost like Kirkes was busting a gut for no reason. And he looked very confused as to what he should be doing. Antonio, how are we, sir? Antonio said, tracking back to defence is something we're missing. Diaz was one of those players that made huge sacrifices and left it all on the pitch. I miss him. Antonio, I can't disagree with you. I think both your points are spot on. We're definitely missing the ability of more players to track back. I think every team in world football can maybe carry one passenger, mate. Your Leo Messi, your Cristiano Ronaldo. But we have too many at the minute, Antonio. And like you said, Diaz, he never didn't work his ass off. I don't know why Diaz left Liverpool. I don't know if the club were never going to get to a number with him, but I don't think you're on your own to say that we miss him, mate, because he gave us something different. He did run at people more. He did cause a little bit of chaos. And even for all Darwin's misgivings, there were some attributes of his that we could certainly do with as well, although I'm not trying to say we should have kept them. But thank you, Antonio. The legend said, love a 4-0 win, mate. Proud of that performance. You should be. It's a very good win. Yeah, congrats. You know me, mate. I'm not a hater. A 4-0 win against Atletico Madrid is a damn good result, and fair play to you. And your confidence as a club now, because the legend's an Arsenal fan, must be flying, and deserved. No bitterness for me about these things. As a club, Liverpool can only control what we do. And you deserved your win. Fair play. And I think all in the second half as well, if I'm not mistaken, dude. Yeah, you must be feeling quite confident this season. And understandably, because, you're getting the results. Itachi said, we need 2 wins this week so badly. Arne has to change his system. 4-4-2 for me. Ekitike and Isak up front. Wirtz in behind. Now, it's crunch time. It definitely is crunch time. Like I said, we'll all have our own cut-off point for where we think the manager's job comes under scrutiny, but we all agree 4 losses in a row is unacceptable. And if we don't win both these games this week as well, I would say to you, it's just not good enough, dude. Like Eintracht Frankfurt, we should be beaten. Look at their recent results; they're not exactly in a great vein of form. And Brentford, if we have real serious ambitions to dominate Europe and win more Premier League titles, we should be able to go away to Brentford and get a win as well. So yeah, both games need to be won. With regards to the formation, I don't know on the exact formation that I agree with you on, but I do agree that we're not getting the most out of the players we brought in the way we're currently playing. And maybe that's somewhat of a bedding in period, but I do think the formation is part of it as well. Harry Klein said, the system should focus on Isak, Flo and Hugo. They're the future of the club. Certainly. You brought in all these players. And I would throw Rio Engamoa in there, because that was one of my big gripes at the weekend, was why wasn't Rio brought on? Why wasn't he given a chance to run at those United fullbacks? I mean, look at the damage Diallo was doing to us. Just he's either part of the first team for the here and now, or he's not. And if he's not, you're taking up another forward place in the squad with a player you don't believe can come in and do the damage. Same with Chiesa. So we've got still, in my view, 4 forwards, because the manager refuses to use Engamoa and Chiesa regularly enough. So for me, we're going into the season with 4 forwards. Salah completely out of form. Isak still settling in. Gakpo up and down a little bit. And Ekitike, a very good start to his Liverpool career. So we're hamstringing ourselves by not utilising all our options. And by the way, if I see any fullback marking Nathan Collins on set pieces, I am going to lose my shit. I'm telling you right now, if we aren't putting centre-backs or 6-foot-plus players on Nathan Collins, we're asking for trouble. Because for the life of me, I don't understand why we were letting Maguire be drifting away or be around players that were 7 inches shorter than him. You know where the balls are going. You know they're picking out the big centre-backs. You know they're going diagonal to the back post. And teams know we're weak there. It astounded me that I was sitting behind these free kicks United were taking and looking at Maguire unmarked. I was screaming from the stands. It was driving me demented. So if we do that again against Brentford and Nathan Collins is given Frimpong or Bradley to mark him, it's just asking for trouble. It's just asking for trouble. And it's why I'm so adamant that this zonal marking stuff is just bullshit. It's just no accountability in zonal marking. Jeremy, how are we, sir? Jeremy said, I still can't get over the vacation during the international break. It's way too early in his tenure for that. Even though the vacations in May were a bit unusual, would Klopp done such a thing? So there's 2 sides to this, Jeremy, and everybody needs a break, right? I think we'll all agree everybody needs a break. But like the season only started. I know he had pre-season, but the season actually only started in August. And we're in October. And the manager going off for, a 10-day break or something. It's nonsense, isn't it? It's absolute nonsense. Like I said at the start of the stream, if he went back to the Netherlands to spend a weekend with his family or something, nobody'd have an issue with that. But to go off to Dubai when you're in the midst of a crisis and you have 2 weeks, whether you're working away from home or not, you have 2 weeks to put it right. You should be at the AXA with the coaches. You should be looking at the 21s, the 18s. You should be working with the players who aren't on international duty. And yeah, a few days off for everyone is no problem. But it boils my blood the same way as yours, mate. I can't say would Klopp have done such a thing, but at least he'd have had... I don't know because... And if I was in Arne's position, and that's the only way I can look at it, I would be having sleepless nights and I would be leaving no stone unturned and I would be having honest, clear the air meetings with my coaches, with the players who are there, and I would want everything laid out to try and find a way to stop this. And heading off to Dubai is just piss taking. Keane, you said he went time to spend time with his family. Like I said, mate, I don't care. Sorry to go with you. If you went to Holland for 3 days to spend time with his family, we'd understand it. But to go on a holiday to Dubai with your family, I think is unacceptable when we're in the middle of the season in an international break after 3 losses. Sorry, I don't think he should be going away with his family because he should be sorting out his job. And it's still in the season. You know, the players who are on international duty aren't on a holiday. They're on international duty. The season's still ongoing. Stuff still needs to be sorted out. I don't think now is the time for the manager to be having a holiday, in all honesty. Arthur said, I agree. Zidane's Real Madrid 4-4-2 diamond, but with Isak and Ekitike up top in the middle. We got fullbacks who love to run up Frimpong, Bradley and Kirkes. Look, any change of formation that gets players playing better, mate, I'm open to. But, you know, we have to see the manager being willing to do it. Yeah. And look, I know somebody said that a lot of managers go to Dubai or whatever. Look, that's grand, but we're in the midst of a crisis right now. And like you said, the optics of it alone aren't great, are they? You know, whether it's regularly done or not, fair enough. But I can only speak from my opinion on it. And my opinion is if I was in Arne's shoes, a trip away with my family would be the last thing in my mind because I wouldn't be able to relax. I would need to sort it out. The real Johnny Sin said our set piece coach Aaron Briggs needs sacking. Please tell me you saw this against Manchester United. Second half, 5'8" Macca with a head injury was marking Maguire in corners. I said it as well, mate, about Bradley not even marking Maguire because he was technically standing in front of him when we were conceding a free kick. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. Like I'm banging on about this long enough, but I'm old school. If it's a set piece, a corner, free kick, or whatever, your goalkeeper and your captain, or your goalkeeper and your centre back are saying he's yours, he's yours, he's yours, he's yours. Any of these score, and we know who's at fault. I'm a big believer in that. If your man scores and you're marking him, it's on you. You're at fault. But this zonal system, I think it removes accountability. And, it's not rocket science, as you said. You're putting a 5'8" lad on a 6'4" centre back who's, physically stronger than him and who has a run. There's only going to be one winner there. And it ain't going to be the smaller guy. Lighthouse TV said, Slot doesn't appear to me like that get it done type of coach. He has a few games to prove his worth. I personally do not have high expectations of him. It's a tough one for me to be honest about because he kind of probably overachieved for me last season, and that's kind of where the bar was set now. So this season, he's massively underachieving. So I'm kind of caught somewhere between, what was the difference with last year versus now? And, we often spoke last season about the fact that we started games too slowly, but he went in at half time, usually made the tweaks, and more often than not, we came out second half, looked better, and won the game. But it still doesn't explain to me why we're starting so slowly. And again, bar maybe Atletico Madrid, I think we've started slowly again this season. And where is that intensity? I also believe that Virgil's, what's the word I want to look for here? Demeanour, the way he carries himself as a relaxed, calm, chill dude, I think that can seep through the team as well sometimes. And sometimes you need someone screaming at you. Sometimes you need somebody in your face. You need somebody setting the tone. And I don't think Verge is setting the tone either. So there's so many little things that just irritate me with the way we're doing it. I hate the way Virgil just keeps putting the ball out for throw-ins randomly when he has a chance to use the ball. He does it to reset and let us get in a defensive position, but I don't think we need to put it out that often. So many times he could have gone back to the keeper or he could have controlled it and gone sideways, but he just has this mad belief in just putting the ball out and resetting. And when we're taking throw-ins and going backwards with it again, that also does my head in. But why? And why is nobody showing for us when we have a throw in a forward position? What happened with the throw-in coach we had? Why are we too cool to try long throw-ins? It's an arrogance for me. Because Slot is banging on about low blocks, throw-ins and set pieces as if they're illegal. As if there's something that shouldn't be in the game of football. This is football. Football has changed direction. Football has gone back towards some of these things. And if you're going to be there bitching and moaning about it, you best find a way to stop it. And when you're not doing that, you're looking very foolish complaining about teams using it, because why wouldn't they when it's effective? The onus is on us to stop it and make it ineffective, or to join the party and start trying it ourselves. Sideshow Think said, very nervous. I think Diogo's loss hurt the guys, and I'm not happy that they've let Chibicas go, even for a length. Look, the Diogo thing, mate, of course. And I always try to caveat when we're talking about these things with that, because that is a huge, huge thing. To lose somebody you worked with, even just go in to the training ground and not hear a familiar voice you used to hear. And it's not because he's gone to a new club or anything. So 100%, mate. 100% I'm with you on that. But what I've tried to say about this is there will always be some players who can compartmentalise things, and some players who are maybe hurting more obviously than others. And that's cool. It's okay to be in a bad place or hurting with what's happened. But that's where I think the man management needs to come into it. And if there are people, and let's say use Mo as an example, if he is really struggling, well then it'll benefit him more to be taken out of the limelight and the spotlight, and let him grieve. And I'm using Mo as an example, but it could have been anybody. So I'm with you, 100% with you. I also don't think we can use it as a get out of jail free card. But if there are players who are struggling more than others, of course, but take them out of the limelight, give them time, and go with maybe somebody who is a little bit more mentally tuned in at the time. Where was I? This one. Wesley, how are we, sir? Said, what happened to the Slot that changed tactics throughout the game? It seems we're sticking with the same shit over and over. So Connor said something to me earlier on that he read from, I think it was a Sam Maguire piece, and it was something Dr. Ian Graham had said. Statistically, if you empty the bench of all your attacking talent and throw them on, the chances are more likely to fall to players you don't want them to versus your, let's say, 2 top goal scorers. I don't understand how this works because I'm not intelligent enough to figure it out. But, if Dr. Ian Graham is talking about it, you can bet your backside that there's enough analysis done to back up what he's saying. So we're going back to what you've said about the change in the tactics throughout the game. It's the opening tactics. It's how we're starting the game that I think is frustrating a lot of us, mate, because teams know what we're going to do. How many times have you heard like Cucurella say the boss told them to play in behind the fullbacks because the space was going to be there? We played against, who was it we played against recently? Palace. And you could see straight away that they were looking to go over the heads of our defenders and get in behind. They were looking to switch. They were looking to play the ball to the back post. These are all things the teams know to do against us, but we don't seem to have enough awareness to realise these faults about ourselves and address them. Is that arrogance? I don't know, but it's certainly not good enough. GM says, do you think the signing of Ekitike got overlooked before the season started? He's a nice surprise. Definitely. Definitely. We're all fascinated with the Wirtz, the Isaks, the British transfer record breaking signings. But Ekitike's come in and gone about his business in a very impressive way. And, you're seeing many pundits as well say that he's the hot hand now. He's the guy who should be playing if you're only playing one number 9. And I think that's more than fair. Hugo has been brilliant since he's come in. And you could feel the energy inside Anfield lift when he came on. Like straight away the cop were singing, oh, Hugo Ekitike. And you could feel it. You could just feel an intensity level ratchet up. You could see on the pitch just a determination, a confidence, and just a desire to make something happen. It was tangible. You could feel it. George said, thoughts on leaving Maka after the head injury? Leaving him on. I'm not qualified to give you a medical opinion on it, but it shouldn't have taken too long to see that he wasn't at it, one way or the other. So the fact that he played so long, I think, was a mistake. But honestly, George, the fact that he even started the game, I feel was a mistake for reasons I've spelled out previously. His form, the fact that he was, one of the later players back because he was in South America. And after the head injury, especially with how long he was down, like it was a proper knock. I fully expected him to be taken off the pitch at that time. When I was watching the game, I was there. I thought, yeah, he's going to be coming off. And then I was looking over to see if Wirtz was warming up. So, surprised that he was on, mate. Yeah, surprised. Where is the cash coming from? I'm not sure what the question's in relation to. GB Patriot Fire. If you're talking about for more signings, well, we have the ability to spend, mate. I know we spent a lot of money, but we also recouped a fair chunk of money, and the club are turning over a lot of money, so the money is there to spend. Journalists been writing about it as well. I'm not sure if you heard me read this out earlier on, but the newspaper, Mark Douglas, said Liverpool spent nearly 450 million in the summer, but are still in the market for long-term successors to Salah and Virgil van Dijk, and they still have the headroom to spend under the PSR rules after offsetting the record spending spree by selling the likes of Núñez Diaz in the close season. Itachi said, "Evening, my friend. We need 2 wins this week. We also have to try something new. Start Isak and Ekatike. Start Frimpong and Chiesa. It's crunch time. We can lose everything before Christmas." I'm with you, mate. Play them. Start them. It is crunch time. And it sets the wrong precedent if you just keep playing underperforming players. You also said, right now, Elise would be a huge upgrade on our right wing. He definitely would. He definitely would. There's also been a lot of chatter, like I said, about Antoine Semenyo, and I know United are very interested in him as well. But I would like to see Liverpool bring a centre-back and a forward in, a wide forward in January, because we need it. We need it. And if Semenyo is looked at as maybe the long-term Salah replacement, get that replacement in as early as we can to help the transition and to help competition. Joseph said, "That Centurions team was nightmare fuel scary." The Manchester City one, oh, ridiculous, mate. Ridiculous. Really, really, yeah. I agree. Petrified when you played them. Nessie said, "The only signing we need is a new set-piece coach." Well, and some centre-backs, Nessie. Galileo B said, "Do you think Arne's 4-2-3-1 formation is horrible?" I don't think that's the formation. I think it's more of a 4. It's either a 4-2-1-3 or 4-3-3 or 4-1-2-3. I don't see the one striker ahead. I think the front 3 are 3 straight across. For me, mate. But it's more the personnel that I'm disagreeing with lately than the formation, to be honest. Right, ladies and gentlemen. I think I've gone through everything. Don't think I've missed anything that we've discussed. But the Anfield Agenda podcast is going to be out in 5 minutes' time. Myself, Connor and Chris sat down and had an open and frank discussion about the manager, what the direction we're headed in, who should be playing and not playing, and a few other bits and pieces. So if you get a chance, please do give it a watch. Tomorrow, I'll be live for the watch-along from 6:45 p.m. Obviously, match reaction, player ratings video, and everything else that you would expect. If you could do me a favour, if you've enjoyed the stream, please do hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you haven't already, don't forget to join up to the Anfield Agenda WhatsApp channel, where you can get all the latest news updates. You'll get the link to submit the player ratings if you'd like to contribute to those for the post-match stuff. Just scan that QR code there on the screen, and that will bring you right across to our WhatsApp. So much love to you all. Thank you for another fun night. I always appreciate it and look forward to spending some time with you. And I'll see you tomorrow, where, fingers crossed, the Reds can get back to winning ways.